Welcome to my channel. Kindly subscribe and make sure you watch to the end. Thank you. Today our story is based on the secret things going on the children's playground. Let's begin. Towards evening, as the sun cast long shadows over the dusty ground, where the laughter of children filled the air like music. Boys chased after rolling car tires, their bare feet kicking up little clouds of dust, while the girls sat on swings, their dresses fluttering as they soared higher and higher. Among them were Tobi and Ada, two inseparable 8-year-olds who had known each other since they could walk. Tobi, always full of energy, was the fastest in the neighborhood when it came to rolling car tires. His strong hands gripped the stick as he pushed his tire forward, running after it with determination. Ada, on the other hand, was lighter on her feet, dancing through the playground with a grace that made her seem like she floated instead of walked. Though they played with the other children, they always found themselves drawn back to each other. One day, as Ada sat on the swings, lazily kicking the dirt beneath her, Tobi ran up to her, slightly out of breath. His dark hands held a small, red hibiscus flower, its petals vibrant in the golden sunlight. He extended it toward her with an awkward shyness. "This is for you," he said, his voice softer than usual. Ada's large brown eyes widened as she took the flower carefully. "Why?" she asked, tilting her head in curiosity. Tobi shuffled his feet, staring down at the ground. "Because you're my best friend. And I think you're the prettiest girl in school." Ada blinked in surprise, then giggled. "You're funny, Tobi." But she tucked the flower behind her ear, offering him a warm smile that made his heart feel light. That was the moment everything changed. As the sun began to set behind the hills, Ada would take her clay pot, balancing it carefully on her small hands as she made her way toward the village stream. It was a daily chore, one that all the girls in the neighborhood had to do, but Ada found it tiring. The pot was heavy when full, and the path leading to the stream was uneven, with loose stones that could trip her if she wasn't careful. Tobi had noticed how Ada struggled sometimes. One evening, just as she was about to leave for the stream, he appeared beside her, his hands stuffed into the pockets of his shorts. "I'm coming with you," he declared. Ada raised an eyebrow. "To do what?" Tobi grinned. "To help you, of course." Ada rolled her eyes. "It's my job, Tobi. I can do it myself." He ignored her protest and reached for the pot. "Let me carry it." Ada hesitated but finally let him take it. As they walked side by side toward the stream, she watched as he adjusted the weight of the pot, trying to carry it the way she usually did. He wobbled at first, but soon, he found his balance. By the time they reached the stream, the air was cooler, and the sky had turned shades of orange and pink. They knelt by the water, filling the pot carefully, watching tiny fish dart around their fingers. Afterward, instead of rushing back, they sat on a large rock beneath a mango tree, listening to the rustling of leaves in the breeze. Tobi plucked a ripe mango from the branch above them, using his teeth to peel the skin before handing it to Ada. "One day," he said, between bites of his own mango, "I'll be strong enough to carry 2 pots at once." Ada laughed, licking the juice from her fingers. "Then I'll make you fetch all my water while I sit and eat mangoes." Tobi smirked. "Deal." When they returned to the village, Ada's mother eyed them suspiciously. "Oh, Ada, So you have found someone to do your work for you now, eh? Ada laughed and Tobi just grinned. He didn't mind carrying the pot. Helping Ada felt right, like something he was always meant to do. On weekends, after spending hours at the playground, a group of children, including Tobi and Ada, would dash toward the small river at the edge of the village. The cool, clear water shimmered beneath the afternoon sun, reflecting the swaying palm trees that lined the banks. Tobi always jumped in first, splashing noisily as he dived under the surface. Ada, on the other hand, would linger at the edge, dipping her toes in cautiously. "Come in, Ada. The water is fine," Tobi called, floating on his back. She crossed her arms. "You know I don't like the deep part." Tobi swam closer, reaching out his hand. "Then hold mine. I won't let anything happen to you." She hesitated for a moment before finally taking his hand and stepping in. The water was cool against her skin, and though it made her shiver at first, she quickly grew used to it. Together, they splashed, chased tiny fish, and floated lazily, staring up at the sky. At one point, Tobi cupped his hands, filled them with water, and poured it over Ada's head. She gasped before laughing, splashing him back. "Oh, you're in trouble now." Soon, a playful water fight broke out, their laughter ringing through the air. As the sun began to sink behind the trees, they climbed onto the smooth river rocks, letting the last rays of sunlight warm their damp skin. "You see," Tobi said, turning to Ada. "I told you I wouldn't let anything happen to you." Ada smiled, trailing her fingers through the water. "I know." One humid afternoon, dark clouds rolled in, and a warm drizzle began to fall. The other children ran for shelter, but Tobi and Ada stood their ground, watching the raindrops splash onto the dusty earth. Then, without warning, Ada grabbed Tobi's hands and spun in circles. "Come on, Tobi. Let's dance," she laughed, her braids sticking to her wet cheeks. He hesitated for a second before joining in. They stomped through puddles, twirled under the rain, and jumped with reckless joy. Tobi threw his arms out and shouted, "We are kings and queens of the rain." Ada giggled, tilting her head back, letting the rain kiss her face. That day, their bond grew even stronger, like the rain had sealed a silent promise between them. Tobi's friends had seen it all, the way he looked at Ada, how he always helped her, how he rushed to her side at any given chance. One afternoon, as they raced their car tires, Chidi nudged him. "You're always with Ada," Chidi teased. "Do you even know how to play without her?" Ton smacked. "Maybe he wants to marry her already." Tobi rolled his eyes but felt his face heat up. "Shut up," he muttered, pushing his tire harder. "You always hug her," Chidi continued, grinning. "What's next?" "Carrying her school bag too." Tobi clenched his jaw. "She's my best friend. I like being around her, that's all." Ton snickered. "That's not all. You look at her like she's a pot of steaming jollof rice." The boys roared with laughter. Tobi groaned. They weren't wrong. There was something about Ada that made his heart feel funny. But he didn't care what they said. All that mattered was Ada. And in the innocent world of childhood, where love was simple and pure, their story continued, one hug, one handhold, and one laughter-filled day at a time. At first, it was subtle. Tobi had always been affectionate, quick to hug Ada after winning a game, always eager to hold her hand when they walked home from the river. But lately, his touches lingered. His stares were longer, his compliments softer, more personal. He no longer called her just his best friend. He called her beautiful. His friends noticed too. One afternoon, as they rode car tires down the dusty path, Chidi nudged him with an elbow. "You're always with Ada," Chidi teased, watching Tobi glance toward the group of girls playing ump under a tree. "Do you even know how to play without her?" Ton smacked. Maybe he wants to marry her. Already. Tobi rolled his eyes, but his face warmed. "Shut up," he muttered, pushing his tire harder. "You always hug her," Chidi continued, grinning. "What's next? Carrying her school bag too?" Tobi clenched his jaw, ignoring their laughter. They weren't wrong. There was something about Ada that made his heart feel funny. Something that made him want more than just their usual games and laughter. At first, Ada laughed at Tobi's extra attention, brushing it off like a cool breeze on a hot afternoon. But soon, it became hard to ignore. She noticed how his friends teased him when she was around. She noticed how his touches had changed, how his hugs felt different, how he always found an excuse to hold her hand for longer than necessary. One evening, as they walked home after fetching water, Tobi slowed his steps. "Ada," he said, his voice uncertain. He hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I like you." Ada laughed lightly. "I know, silly. We've been best friends forever." "No," Tobi insisted, stopping in the middle of the road. "Not like that. I mean, I really like you." For the first time, Ada felt something in her chest tighten, not with excitement, but with discomfort. She looked away, shifting the clay pot on her hip. "Tobi, we are just children." "So," he pressed. "That doesn't mean I can't like you differently." Ada forced a small smile. "Let's just go home, Tobi." She hoped he would drop the conversation, hoped things would go back to how they were. But deep down, she knew they wouldn't. The more Tobi tried to get closer, the more Ada felt herself pulling away. When they played in the rain, she was no longer as carefree, suddenly too aware of how Tobi's eyes followed her. When they swam in the river, she no longer let him hold her hand to guide her through the water. One afternoon, as they sat under the iroko tree, Tobi reached for her hand. But this time, Ada pulled back. Tobi frowned. "What's wrong?" Ada looked away, her fingers gripping the hem of her dress. "I don't know, Tobi. Things feel different." Tobi's jaw tightened. "Different how?" Ada sighed. I don't think I want this. Whatever this is." For the first time, Tobi had no words. She stood up, brushing the dust off her dress. "I should go home." And just like that, the space between them grew wider. The days turned into weeks, and though Tobi and Ada still lived in the same village, they felt farther apart than ever. They no longer raced car tires together or splashed in the river like they used to. When the other children gathered at the playground, they both came, but not together. Tobi stayed with the boys, rolling car tires and wrestling in the dust. Ada stayed with the girls, clapping rhythms for ump and skipping rope. Their laughter still filled the air, but it never mixed like before. Still, every now and then, their eyes would meet across the playground. It only lasted a second before one of them looked away, but it happened often enough for both of them to notice. Something had changed between them, and neither of them knew how to fix it. One afternoon, dark clouds rolled in, thick and heavy, swallowing the sky in a deep gray. The wind howled through the village, bending tree branches and sending dry leaves tumbling across the ground. The air smelled of rain, thick and earthy. The other children hurried home, their laughter fading as they ran to their mother's huts. Ada was already halfway home when she realized she had forgotten her wooden spoon by the river. She hesitated. Her mother would be angry if she lost it. She had no choice, she had to go back. She turned and ran toward the riverbank, her feet kicking up dust as the wind whipped around her. Just as she reached the water's edge, fat drops of rain began to fall. And there, standing near the river, was Tobi. He had been helping his mother fetch water, but now he stood frozen, staring at her in surprise. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, the skies opened. The rain came down in thick, heavy sheets, drenching them both within seconds. The wind howled louder, and thunder rumbled in the distance. Ada clutched her spoon tightly. "We should go," she shouted over the storm. Tobi hesitated before nodding. "Come on." He grabbed her hand, instinctively, without thinking, and together, they ran. Their feet splashed through puddles as they raced back toward the village, dodging fallen branches and slipping in the mud. They ran like they used to, like nothing had ever changed, like they were just two children playing in the rain again. By the time they reached the village, they were soaked from head to toe, their clothes clinging to their skin, their faces streaked with mud. And then, without warning, Ada started laughing. Not the small, polite laugh she had learned to give when she felt uncomfortable. No, this was real, full, breathless laughter, the kind that shook her entire body. Tobi stared at her for a second before he started laughing too. For the first time in a long time, they were just Ada and Tobi again. Just two children. Just two friends. The rain continued to fall, but neither of them moved. Ada wiped water from her face. "You still run slow, Tobi," she teased. Tobi scoffed, pushing wet curls from his forehead. "And you still talk too much." She grinned. "Maybe." For a moment, it felt like nothing had ever changed between them. But something had. And they both knew it. Still, as the rain poured around them, they stood together, side by side, just like before. Maybe they could never go back to how things were. But maybe, just maybe, they could find something new. Thank you for watching till the kindly subscribe for more fascinating stories. See you on my next video.